Okay, now let's get started with our hero section. We have already placed this background image in our previous tutorial. All that is left for this section is we have to place in these contents. So this is going to be a container with a H1 or H2, then some text, a paragraph and 2 buttons. That's all. Okay, so let's get started. Let's come down. Okay, this is our hero section. Let's create a div called hero container. Let's bring in H2, your dream home awaits. Then we have a paragraph. Let's put lorem 6. Then let's create 2 buttons. Let's give this one a class in touch, and the caption is get in touch. Another button with the class name about. Let's change these and attach -vtn for identification. Now for the caption, about real estate pro. So these are all the contents. Now let's get started with styling them. So go to style files. Okay, let's add in comments. Hero section starts. Okay, so we have already the image. Now we have to make sure the contents of the hero are in the center. And the easiest way to bring something in center is set its display property to flex, justify content in align item center. So justify content center and align item center. Okay, so these are the contents in the center. Now let's style them. The class name is hero container. First of all, let's give it blur background, the frosted or glassmorphic background. Paste it, and okay, so this is how it looks. I can't tell if it's frosted. Let's change the text color. So color is going to be white. Let's give it padding all around 2 rem. Okay, so it is frosted. Now we have to target this H2, but we are going to define some generic properties for all the H2s. So basically, if you notice, this is H2, H2, this is also H2, and so basically all the titles are H2, the main titles. So we have to define a global font for all of them, and this text has a text shadow as well. So we are going to define their properties in a generic block. So let's go up, and after this body, let's define H2. First of all, let's define font size 2.5 rem. Then text transform, let's capitalize it. Then we have to define text shadow. So this text shadow contains a value, offset value in pixels for the shadow in the x-axis direction, and then the next one, a shadow in the vertical direction, then the blur value, and then the color of the shadow. So basically, if you imagine the element which is being shadowed as a box, so defining all these values that I just mentioned will give text shadow in just one corner of that box. Now we want the shadow to be all around the text, so we have to define shadows for all 4 corners of the box. So to do that, let's start with the first one. So the normal one is going to be 2 pixels in the x-axis or horizontal direction, 2 pixels in the vertical direction. For the blur, let's give it 4 pixels, and for the color, let's give it 333. Then let's copy this part, put a comma and paste, again comma, paste, and comma, paste. Okay, so we have 4 such set of values. Okay, so first one has x-axis and y-axis in positive direction. For the second one, let's just make x negative. So this will be the other end of the x-axis. For the third one, let's keep x-axis positive, make y-axis negative. And for the last one, both of x-axis and y-axis are going to be negative. Okay, so this is how it looks. It's not very clear that if we have got the shadow or not. Let's increase the font size as well. Then we might be able to see the shadow. Let's make it 3.5 rem. I think we are able to notice there is a shadow. Now let's put in H1 and H3 as well. In fact, what we are going to do is that we are moving this font size. Copy. Let's change it to H2 because I'm not sure if we have used H1 anywhere. So paste it over here. And for the H3, the font size, let's make it 2.8 rem. We will see if we need to make changes to this font size. Okay, so our H2, H3 and H1, they all contain a capitalization and this shadow. The rest of the properties are defined over here. Let's define color property as well because all of them are going to have white color. So this is the right place. There are 2 hashes. Okay. Yeah, I think this is fine. Now let's start working on the hero container div. So let's go back to our hero container div. Over here, we have to give it round edges. So border radius is going to be 0.4 rem. Maybe a little bit more radius. Let's make it 0.6. Now for the H2, which belongs to hero container, so hero container and then H2, we have to give it padding all around. So top and bottom, let's make it 2 rem, and left and right we don't need, so 0. Okay, that's good. Now let's target this paragraph. So hero container and then P, text transform. Do you think? Let me check if it's capitalized. We only need the first one. Only the first character should be capitalized, like a normal sentence. Since we only have to capitalize just first character, so if we say capitalize, it's going to capitalize each letter. If we say uppercase, it's going to capitalize all the text of the paragraph. So we have to just target first letter, and now we can capitalize it. Okay, we wouldn't know the difference because our text was already, the first letter was already capital. So let's change it. Where is our lorem ipsum? Let's make it small, lowercase letter. Now let's have a peek. Yeah, it has been capitalized. Okay, so now we have to target the font size. So over here, hero container paragraph, font size, let's make it 1.6 rem. Then heading all around, let's make it 1 rem. That's a lot. Let's make it padding bottom. Maybe we need to increase the font size a little bit more. Let's make it 2.2 rem. I think 2 rem will do. Okay. Yeah, I think that's better. Now let's target these buttons. So hero container and any button. Okay, let's give it background color. I don't remember the exact value of the color, so this is the value. So I'm going to copy it from here, copy and paste it over here. Okay, now we have to give it some padding all around to make them bigger. Then remove the background, remove the border, give some round edges and make this text white as well. Padding all around, let's make it top and bottom 1 rem, left and right Let's start with all around 1 rem. Let's go with the border radius first. So border radius 0.4 rem, and the color of the text is going to be white. Okay, we need them in the center. Okay, so what are the ways to bring these buttons in the center? We can go with defining display flex and then justifying contents and align item center, but we will have to change the flex direction to column as well. The other option is for this container, we can set its text align property to center, and then we will go from there. So let's go to the hero container div over here. Text align, let's make it center. Okay, so now everything is in the center, but the question is, do we want this text in the center as well, this paragraph? Yeah, I think fine. Now we need some space between this text and some of these buttons. We have to increase the font size of this text as well, increase the space between them, and remove the border. So let's go back down again to our buttons. Border is going to be none, and then outline is also going to be none. Font size 1.6 rem, and let's put some space between these two buttons. So let's give them margin left. Start with 1 rem or 0.6 rem. Let's give it some box shadow, and let's define the same properties that we have for the text shadow. So 2px, 2px, 4px, and then the color was H333. We only need text box shadow in one direction. Okay, we need spread as well. So box shadow, this is below. Then for the spread, let's use 4px. Oh, I've been looking at the demo project. Oh, let's decrease the spread. Hardly any difference, but I think it's better than this one. Okay, we need cursor as well. So our cursor should be pointer. Okay, good. Now we need some margin between this text and these buttons. So margin top and bottom, let's make it 1 rem. Left and right, we don't need it, so I think we do need. So what I'm gonna do is that if this is how we go, then this margin left gets overwritten. So we are going to bring it down. So first of all, so over here we are setting left and right margin to 0, but then on the next line we are setting it to 0.6, but margin left, just margin left. Or let's comment it out and remove this one and see the difference. Okay, I think this is way better than what we were going about. But this text should be capitalized. Have I not set this property? No. So text transform is going to be capitalized. Okay, good. When we hover over it, the color should change. Let's inspect. So I think we have hover properties defined as well. Okay, there it is. So this is the color. So copy. Okay, so hero container button, and we have to attach, hover with it, and let's change the background color to this one. So this is slightly darker than the actual color of the button when it's not hovered over. Okay, so when we hover over it, it changes the color. Okay, and with this the basic styling is done. All we have to check is how does it behave responsively. So let's start with the 1200 pixels. So let's start with 1200. I think 1200 is just fine. We don't need to make any changes. 768. This is also fine, except for because of this white background. Now this text is not as visible as we had earlier. Let's check 480 and then we'll think about. Okay, maybe for 480 we should place these buttons vertically. Let's have a look first. How does it look on 768? Maybe we should do the same for 768 as well, because otherwise now this building is hidden. So basically for 768 we want to decrease this font size as well, so that this part should shrink and we can actually properly see the picture behind it, which is important because we are a realtor estate, so showing houses is also important. Okay, so for 768, let's go up first. So for H2 and H3, let's copy this part. Let's go back to 768 and let's place it over here. Decrease the font size from 3.5 to 2.5, and from 2.8 to just 2 names for H3s, maybe 2.2, and this one 2.6. Okay, I think this is fine. Okay, so now we are going to bring these buttons in separate rows, so one after the other. For that we have to make the button display property block. So let's go back, not back, at the very end of 768. So over here we are saying hero container and button. We are going to set its display property to block. Why the buttons aren't in the center? To rectify this situation, we are going to set margin top and bottom 1.2 rem, and left and right is going to be margin auto. Okay, that's good. However, we have to do something about this text. So maybe we should give this text some shadow as well. This way it will be prominent no matter what the background is. And maybe we should give both of these buttons same size. So for the width, let's make it 75%, or let's make it 75%. So 75% of the container. Okay. Now let's give this text some shadow. So let's go up and let's copy this text shadow for H2 and H3. Let's go to this hero containers paragraph and paste it over here. However, we don't want as prominent text shadow, so 1 pixel, and blur is going to be 2 pixels. So let me copy these values. Copy, never mind. 1 and 2. 1 2 1 and 2. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, so we are done with making our hero section responsive as well. Now let's move on to featured section. We have separate pages for these two, so we are not touching them yet, and we are moving to this featured part. Okay, so these are the featured one. Now these are featured listing. This is the heading. I think we have already define basic coloring and shadowing properties, font size as well, we might have to define separately the padding. However, this is one listing of the property, this is another. So basically this, we are definitely going to have a div which contains the first child is a image. Then we have this part, this one is green for the properties that are available to be sold, and this is going to be a shade of red, light red or pinkish shade for the properties that are available to let, that is available for the rent. Then this is H3. Again, we have defined most of the properties for H3 already, and these are all different paragraphs. So let's start with them. Okay, so let's go to our index.html. Then for the featured section, let's first of all define our H2, and the title is featured listings. We got the H2. Now let's create a container. So let's give it featured container, or let's make it listing container. Now within the listing container, we are going to represent a card for each property or each listing. So let's first create one card. We are going to give it the class name listing. Now the first element of this listing is an image. So let's define image. Let's get it from images and let's make it front1.jpg. Then create a div which is going to represent that red strip with the space either to rent or to buy. So the class name is going to be type. Okay, for the time being just put to let. Next we have H3 for the title. So title property. So this is our title, then city, type, area, bedroom, bathroom, price, 6 paragraphs. So let's define 6 paragraphs. The first one is, let's make it span and put in city. Let's copy it. We are putting this name, the name of the column kind of within the span, so that if we like, we can separately style them, maybe capitalizing them or making them, not capitalize, making them bold so that they are more visible. So city, then we have type, area, bedrooms, then bathrooms. Then what do we have next? So this one is going to be either to buy or price or rent. So let's, since we have put to let over here, so let's make it rent. So we have to give this one the class rent as well, so that we can. Now defining a class name for this paragraph doesn't make much sense over here, but it will make more sense when we have our backend and the data is coming from the backend and we are dynamically inserting these cards in our web page. So we will have to make changes over here. If it's a rented property, we will say rent over here, otherwise it's going to be price, over here. So either it's going to be rent over here or it's going to be price over here. So we will decide what text to put over here based on the class name. Okay, so let's put in $800. Yeah, $800. So we have to put rent over here. So rent is $800 per month. Okay, now for the city, let's make it London. Now this type is the house type, like this condominium or detached. So let's make it detached. Area is going to be 850.50. Bedrooms, let's make it 3. Bathrooms, let's make it 1.5. So this 1.5 means one complete bath with toilet and bath, and this one is just like just a powder room, which is just the toilet. So that's how it's written over here in realtor terminology. In realtor terminology, it's 1.5 baths. And we have already put in the rent. Okay, so this is one listing. Let's copy this and let's put in paste it. Let's put another one, listing 3, paste it over here. Let's make this one, let's make second one, to let to buy. City, let's make it Manchester. Let's keep the rest of the things same. Over here, let's make it Birmingham. Okay, let's change the images though. First one is front one. For the second one, let's take this front 8 and this one front 3. Let's have a peek. Okay, so this is the image of the first property. This is the second property and this is the third property image. And the details are over here. Now we have to style them. But where's the heading? Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's start with this heading and give it some paddings and bring it in the center. In fact, we should put this centering of the heading in the global properties. So let's go up to our H2. Okay. Text align, let's make it center. Okay. Now let's go down. Property listings. So listing container. Now since this listing container is actually a section and each section is going to have a minimum height of whole viewport window. So that property we are going to define generically for a section, so that we can define some other properties such as the width of the sections as well. So over here we have to define certain properties for the section, such as minimum height is going to be 100% viewport height and width is going to be 100% viewport width. This way we don't have to separately define these two properties for all the sections. Okay, now next over here we are going to define padding as well, because we want the padding to be consistent for all the sections throughout our website. So for the top and bottom, let's give it 2 rems minimum, but for the left and right, let's put in 5 rem. And what this will do is that it will give each section a consistent padding. From when we move from one section to the another section, you will see the contents are placed in alignment with respect to the width of the viewport screen. So this is what it's doing. Now let's go down. And let's put in the curly brackets. Okay, now for the listing, we have to set display to flex, justify content center, and align item center. Then we have to define flex rep to rep, because these properties will affect the cards which are defined within this container. Now between the cards we want some gap, both horizontal and vertical. So let's make it 2 rem for the time being. Okay, so these are some properties. Now let's move on to the individual listings. Sorry, not individual listings. So let's target the H2 defined within the listing container. So the H2, we have to define padding top and bottom. Let's make it 2 rem. For the left and right, let's put in 0, because our H2 is already in the center, so we don't need to define any padding for the left and right. I don't think it has had any effect. Maybe H2 is a lot less, so let's go with 5 rem and see. Okay, I don't know. Okay, actually our H2 is not within the listing container, it's within the featured element. That's why it was not taking any effect. So let's replace this with featured, and since featured is a section, so let's move it above the listing container. Okay, so for the H2 in the feature, the padding top and bottom is 5 frame. Now as you can see, there is a lot more space between the image and this title. Okay, next. Okay, this is our listing container. Now let's define listing container, then individual listing. Okay, first of all we have to give each card a width and height. So let's give it width, let's make it 20, 30 rem, and height, let's make it 600 rem, sorry, 60 rem. 60 rem means 600 pixels. Now we can target the image element within this listing. So let me remove this, it's going to make it too long to write. Listing, and then we have image. So for the width, let's make it 100%. That means 100% of the parent, which means 30 rem. And for the height, we want it to cover 60% of the parent, so 60%. Then we have to ensure our object fits within these two dimensions. So we are going to define object fit cover. Okay, so this is the 60% of each card. So far, we have to decrease the height. These images appear a bit bigger than what we have over here. So instead of 60, let's make it 40. Yeah, that's better. Now I think we need to decrease the font size for the title. H3, this is H3. Yeah, let's go down. Listing H3, font size, let's make it 1.8 rem. Yeah, I think that's better. Now let's target this too late first. So too late is our paragraph with the class name type. In fact, let's go and change it. So let me have a peek what kind of classes we have used. Okay, let's make it too late. And for the properties that are being sold, let's change it to buy. Too late. So if now we can target these classes, too late with hyphen. Okay, so listing too late. Background color, let's put in red first, we will eventually change it. Then listing to buy, background color is going to be green. The rest of the properties are going to be same for both of these. So listing to let, comma, listing to buy. Okay, let's give it width, some width and height. So width is going to be 100%. Height is going to be, let's give it 2.5 frame. Text transform, capitalize. Text align, center. Font size, let's make it 1.2 rem. Okay, this is it. However, this text is not centrally, it's centrally justified. However, for the vertical alignment, it's not exactly in the center. So let's change the font to 1.5 frame, and instead of text alignment, let's make it display flex, justify content center, align item center. Okay, let's increase the height. So height, let's make it 3.2 rem. let's give this h3 some padding as well. So padding top and bottom 0.8 rem. For the left and right, let's keep it 0. Okay, that's good. Now let's target these paragraphs. So listing and then paragraph. Font size is going to be the same that we have given to our toollet 1.5 rem. Padding all around is going to be top and bottom, let's make it 0.4 rem. For left and right, let's put it 0. We will give the padding to the listing container, not listing container, this listing. So this way everything will have some padding, but let's comment this out for the time being. We yet have to define basically two things: the background for our section, and then we have to frost this listing. So each listing will have the frosted look. But let's go back to our paragraphs for the time being. Okay, 0.4 top and bottom, left and right 0. Okay, text transform capitalize, and then we will target this spans. Then text transform capitalize. Now listing p span, font weight, let's make it bold. Okay, let's give this span some margin right. I'm giving it some margin right because I want to put some space between this span and the value of that thing. So margin right, let's give it 0.4 rem. Yeah, I think that's better. Now let's give this whole section a background color so that we can apply tinted frost look. So for that, let's go to our section which is named featured. Okay. Featured, background, not color, just background. Then the URL is going to be images, and then I don't know what image is it. Let's place it centrally. So first of all, no repeat, then center, that is, the image should be placed vertically and horizontally in the center, and from there it should be stretched or scaled in all directions if there is a need to fill in the whole area of this featured section. Then cover, so D is missing. Okay, so this is the image. Let's inspect. I want to place in exactly same image. Okay, so this is the image. It's called Real Estate Pro 5. Okay. Okay, so this is our background image. Now let's give it frosted glass look. So for that, again, let's go up. Let's copy these two properties. Let's go back to our featured over here, not featured, sorry, to the listing. Paste it over here. So now each property will get this frosted glass look. Okay, so this is what you get. Okay, maybe height is too much. Let's decrease the height. Okay, so we have to decrease the height, give these cards round edges, and what else? Yeah, put in some padding so that there is some space over here around the edges. Okay, so for the listing, the padding is, let's put in 0 padding for the top and bottom. For the left and right, let's give it 1 rem. And we have to decrease the height from 60 rem to make it 45. We still have some space. So let's make it 40. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Now let's give it some round edges. However, this image and this div should not have this padding. So for this image, first of all, let's give some round edges. So border radius is going to be 0.5 frame. Now in order for this image and this div to stretch out and cover the whole width, we can basically, we have given the padding for the left and right, this is 1 frame. So what we are going to do is that for the image, let's give the margin for the top and bottom. We don't need any margin. For the left and right, let's put in 1 frame but negative. So basically we are pulling the image out on both directions, left and right. Then the width 100% of, so this width 100% is basically the 100% of the parent, that is this width 30 rem. But now since we have given it padding 1 rem to the left and right, so this 100% actually represents 28 rem, because the 100% width doesn't account for the paddings that have been given to the parent from that width. So that's why I have stretched it out -1 rem on each side. But now we have to make sure the width covers it as well. So the width is going to be calculated 100% plus 2 rem. So now 28 pixels, which is coming from the parent, plus 2 rems. Okay, so now you can see the image covers the whole width of the card. We have to do the same for this div as well. So let me bring this over here. Now copy it. Copy. Let's take it to this toollet and to buy. So let's replace this 100% with these 2 parameters. Okay, good. Now if you notice, the bottom edges are round, but the top edges doesn't seem to be round. So it's because the image doesn't have round edges. So we are going to set the top, these top 2 edges of the image some round edges as well. So again, let's go back to the image over here. So border, this is border top left radius. Let's give it, I think we have given 0.4 rem, and we have to do the same for border top right radius, 0.4 rem as well. Yeah. Okay, now we don't have to define these 2 colors. We need these colors, so let's inspect this color. This is the color. Copy. Let's go down and paste it over here. Okay, now for the red one, to buy, let's go, to rent. Inspect, and this is the color. Copy and paste. Okay. Okay, so our cards have bigger width over here. Okay, for the width, let's make it 34 rem, and for the height, let's make it 22 rem. Okay. Okay, then we hover over them. The card is scaling little bit, and we need cursor pointer as well. So for the listing, cursor is going to be pointer, and when we hover over the listing, it should transition and it should transform, and it should scale 1.02, just teeny weeny bit. But because this is a transitioning effect, so we want the transition to be smooth. In fact, instead of defining this transition over here, let's cut it and put it over here for the where is the heading body. sorry, not body, let's go to this, sorry, not for the body, let's go to the asterisk, and over here let's define this transition all. It should take 0.5 seconds, that is half second, and ease in. Okay, good. Okay, so we are done with the listing featured. Okay, we have to define the click event listener with it, but that we will define when we have defined the details page for each of the properties. So we are gonna leave this part for the time being. Now let's move on to the services part. Okay, for the services, okay, no, sorry, we have one more thing to do. When we get to the feature one, if you notice, the cards are appearing once we get into the view, and they are appearing from the bottom up. So we have yet to define that part, so let's get with it. So what we need to do is that let's go to listing. We have forgotten about the responsiveness as well. So let's work with the listing. Now let's use transform, and we are translate using translate y. We are vertically pushing card from its original position to, let's say, 50 pixels down. Then we need to do one more thing as well, which is we have to set the opacity to 0 as well. Then we have to define a class listing.show. So when an element has these two classes, what should happen? The opacity should get set to 1, and we get, let's go, where is translate y, and the image should be brought back to its original position. So translate back to 0, that is its original position. Now we will attach this show class and remove this show class dynamically. But we don't have to just attach and remove. We have to make sure this show class get attached when we are entering into this listing area, this listing section. So only then we should see this transitioning effect. So the moment we enter, then we start seeing this listing emerges from the bottom. So that should only happen when the featured section is in the view. So we have to go to the JavaScript. Now we have to use an IntersectionObserver. So IntersectionObserver is one of the objects which are already available to us through our browser. And you can think of IntersectionObserver as a spy. So it keeps spying on our web page, and the moment we enter into the part which we have asked it to spy upon, which is going to be this listing, only then it will alert us and we will make the card visible. So let's create that spy, which is called IntersectionObserver. Okay. So const observer new IntersectionObserver. Now to this IntersectionObserver, we will provide a callback function, and for that callback function we are using arrow function. And to that arrow function, or this callback function, we are passing in entries. So this entries is going to be list of all the elements that we have explicitly asked this IntersectionObserver to spy upon. So that will be a list of elements. So we are giving that list of elements named entries. Now within the body of this arrow function, we will iterate over these entries. Entries.forEach. Again, for each is takes a callback function, and one entry at a time is passed as a parameter to this callback function. Now within the body of that callback, we are saying entry.target. So this entry.target. So this entry.target actually represents the element which is being spied upon. So we have to say, So basically we have to say entry.target.add, sorry, classlist.add. What is the class name? Show. But this has to be conditional when this particular entry actually enters into the viewport area. So what we are going to do is that we are going to prefix it with a condition which comes from entry as well. There is a property or attribute defined with each entry object, which is called is intersecting. So this will return a boolean value. So we are conditioning this part with the value of this thing. So if this part returns true, then we will add this show class to the element that has recently entered into the viewport area. So this can be false when we are spying upon multiple elements and some other element has entered into the viewport area. So in that case, we don't want this element, which is currently not in the viewport area, to get this show class attached. So first of all, we are checking if this is the element that has actually entered into the viewport area by this statement. This will return true. If this returns true, then for that element, we are attaching this class name show to its class list. And since we want this behavior or this spying to occur only for the very first time this element appears in the viewport area, after that we don't want it to be spied upon anymore. So we can say observer.unobserve, and let's put in the entry.target. Okay, so this is just the logic what should happen when any of the element which is being spied upon enters into the viewport area. Now we still have to let this our spy, which is named observer, know which element to spy upon. So for that we are going to say const listings document query selector all, because we have lots of listings with the class name listing. So each card basically. Why did I place curly brackets? Okay, now listings start for each. Let's pass in one listing at a time, and we are letting the observer know observer.observe listing. Okay. So we are getting a reference to all the listings, then we are iterating over one listing at a time, and while iterating it, we are letting the spy know that it has to spy upon these listing cards. Now let's test it out. So let's go to the home, refresh, because it will only observe for the very first time. Click on featured, nothing happened. Oh, okay. So it's only appearing once we refresh the page. I wonder why. Featured. And I've noticed that these items are flickering as well. So we have to figure out the cause as well. But first, let's fix this problem. So when we are scrolling there is no featured elements. However, if we refresh it, now we can see the elements. So why is that happening? So the problem is when we, let's say we are anywhere other than the featured section and the page gets reloaded, at that time everything in our JavaScript executes. So where is it? Okay, so when the JavaScript file starts executing, this part is executed, and this file gets executed once all the HTML contents have been loaded into the memory. Then the JavaScript starts getting executed. So when this part executes, at that time, let's say we are over here on a section or area of the web page other than the featured one. So we are not on the featured section. That means our featured section is not within the viewport area. So at that time, this code is executing, and this line is executed, which checks if entry.is intersecting, that the elements that we have asked the IntersectionObserver to spy upon, is it within the viewport area? Because it's not, so this part will not execute. However, this part will execute. And what the second line is telling it, it's saying do not spy upon this element from this moment onward. So that's why when we are here, that statement was checked since the elements were not in the viewport area, so nothing happened, and then the next statement executed which told the intersection observer to stop observing those elements. That's why when we get to the featured area, since these elements are not being observed, so nothing happens over here. So what we need to do is that we have to go to traditional way, which is use the if statement. So if this is the case, then only then these two lines should execute. First add the class and then stop observing or spying upon this. So make the element visible and then unobserve it. Otherwise what was happening, that if this statement was false, this line was not executing, but this line was executing no matter what, because this was outside the if block. So now we have put both of these statements within the if block. So if we don't enter into the body of if, then this statement also not gets executed. That means our intersection observer is still spying upon those elements. This unobserved will trigger only once this statement has returned true and the elements have already been made visible on the browser screen. Now let's go back to the home section and let's refresh just to be extra certain. Now click featured, and as you can see, these images have these cards have appeared. Okay, now as far as that flickering that we were getting, this has been resolved by, let's go to the top. Let's go to the style files, and to the top we had added this part. So I have commented this part, and now I am manually putting the transition property separately for the elements to which I want this property to be defined. So I have set the transition property, and the transition is happening for two things: opacity and transform. So opacity takes half second and ease in, and transform also takes 5 seconds and ease in. So now the flickering is gone and the user interface is behaving just fine. Okay, so that was that. Now we have defined all the basic logic. There is one more thing that we have to define. That is, let's go back to the home. Now let's go to the featured part. Now if you notice, our listing doesn't seem to have much space at the top. So but this section starts over here. So we have to make sure that when we click on any of the elements, the scroll bar doesn't scroll too much high. So for that we have to define a property. So what we need to do is that we have to go to traditional way, which is use the if statement. So if this is the case, then only then these two lines should execute. First add the class and then stop observing or spying upon this. So make the element visible and then unobserve it. Otherwise what was happening, that if this statement was false, this line was not executing, but this line was executing no matter what, because this was outside the if block. So now we have put both of these statements within the if block. So if we don't enter into the body of if, then this statement also not gets executed. That means our intersection observer is still spying upon those elements. This unobserved will trigger only once this statement has returned true and the elements have already been made visible on the browser screen. Now let's go back to the home section and let's refresh just to be extra certain. Now click featured, and as you can see, these images have these cards have appeared. Okay, now as far as that flickering that we were getting, this has been resolved by, let's go to the top. Let's go to the style files, and to the top we had added this part. So I have commented this part, and now I am manually putting the transition property separately for the elements to which I want this property to be defined. So I have set the transition property, and the transition is happening for two things: opacity and transform. So opacity takes half second and ease in, and transform also takes 5 seconds and ease in. So now the flickering is gone and the user interface is behaving just fine. Okay, so that was that. Now we have defined all the basic logic. There is one more thing that we have to define. That is, let's go back to the home. Now let's go to the featured part. Now if you notice, our listing doesn't seem to have much space at the top. So but this section starts